I've always been the one behind the scenes, the assistant who makes things happen without stealing the spotlight. My days were filled with organizing schedules, drafting emails, and ensuring my boss shone brightly. I thrived in the shadows, perfecting every detail to make their events run smoothly. It wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it. Really good. I took pride in being the glue that held everything together, even if no one noticed me. The client meetings, the presentations, the deals, they all happened because of my work. But assistants don't lead, right? That's what I thought, anyway. I was content in my role, happy to support from the sidelines. I never imagined I'd be the one making the big decisions. That was for the executives, the visionaries, not me. Yet, life has a way of flipping the script when you least expect it. My story begins in a bustling corporate office, where I was just another assistant. I was reliable, invisible, and perfectly okay with that, until one client meeting changed everything. It was a typical Monday, the office humming with the usual chaos of a new week. My boss, Mr. Carter, was preparing for a critical pitch to a major client. I'd spent hours perfecting the presentation, double-checking numbers, and ensuring every slide was flawless. The client, a tech giant, was known for being tough to impress. I handed Mr. Carter the finalized materials, expecting to fade back into my routine. But then he called me into his office with an unusual request. "I need you in the meeting," he said, his tone serious. I assumed it was to take notes or manage the slides, as usual. I nodded, grabbed my tablet, and followed him to the boardroom. Little did I know, this meeting would be the turning point of my career. I was about to step out of the shadows, even if I didn't realize it yet. The boardroom was intimidating, sleek, modern, and filled with sharp-eyed client representatives. I sat in the corner, ready to assist as Mr. Carter launched into his pitch. His delivery was smooth, confident, as always. I watched the clients' faces, noting their subtle reactions. Halfway through, one of them interrupted with a tough question about scalability. Mr. Carter hesitated, his usual poise faltering. I knew the answer. Hours of research had burned it into my brain. Before I could stop myself, I spoke up, my voice steady. The room turned to me, surprised, but I explained the data clearly, confidently. The client nodded, impressed, and the meeting moved forward. I felt a rush of adrenaline, but also a pang of fear. Had I overstepped? Assistants don't lead, after all. After the meeting, Mr. Carter pulled me aside, his expression unreadable. I braced for a lecture about knowing my place, but instead, he smiled. "That was impressive," he said, almost grudgingly. I mumbled a thank you, my heart racing. Later that day, the client's lead called Mr. Carter directly. They were thrilled with the pitch and specifically mentioned my contribution. They wanted me to join the next meeting to dive deeper into the technical details. I was stunned, me, the assistant, being noticed. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Mr. Carter agreed, though I could sense his reluctance. I'd always been his support, not his equal. That night, I barely slept, replaying the moment I spoke up, wondering what it meant for my future. The next meeting was a game changer. The client's team was tough, firing off questions about integration and timelines. Mr. Carter leaned on me heavily, deferring to my expertise. I walked them through the numbers, the risks, and the solutions I'd prepared. Their lead, Ms. Reynolds, watched me closely, her eyes sharp but warm. By the end, she was nodding, even smiling. I felt a spark of pride I'd never known before. Assistants don't lead, I kept telling myself, but I was leading this room. When the meeting ended, Ms. Reynolds pulled me aside. "You're wasted as an assistant," she said bluntly. "We need someone like you on our team." My stomach dropped. A job offer? Me? I was too stunned to respond. Back at the office, word spread fast. Colleagues whispered, some supportive, others skeptical. Mr. Carter was cordial but distant, his ego bruised. I wrestled with Ms. Reynolds' words all week. I loved my job, the quiet satisfaction of being the best at what I did. But her offer was a chance to step into a new role, to lead. I spent sleepless nights weighing my options. Assistants don't lead. That mantra haunted me. What if I wasn't ready? What if I failed? But the thought of staying invisible forever felt worse. I started imagining a future where I could make decisions, not just execute them. By the end of the week, I knew I had to take the risk. I called Ms. Reynolds and accepted. My last weeks at the company were bittersweet. I trained my replacement, a bright-eyed new hire who reminded me of myself. Colleagues threw me a small farewell party, but I could feel the undercurrent of envy from some. Mr. Carter gave a stiff congratulations. His pride still stung. I packed up my desk, my heart heavy but hopeful. The client's company, Innovatech, was a tech powerhouse, and I'd be joining as a project lead. It was a role I'd never dreamed of, one that terrified and thrilled me. I kept hearing that old voice in my head, "Assistants don't lead." But I was ready to prove it wrong. As I walked out of the office for the last time, I felt like I was stepping into a new world. My first day at Innovatech was overwhelming. The office was sleek, futuristic, with open desks and glass walls. My new team greeted me warmly, but I could sense their curiosity. Could the assistant really lead? I was given a corner office, small, but mine. My first project was daunting, overseeing a product launch with a tight deadline. I dove in, using everything I'd learned as an assistant. I organized workflows, anticipated risks, and kept everyone on track. My team was skeptical at first, but I earned their respect by listening and delivering. Ms. Reynolds checked in often, her confidence in me unwavering. Slowly, I started to believe I belonged here, that I could lead. The project consumed my life for months. Late nights, endless emails, and high-stakes meetings became my norm. I leaned on my old assistant skills, attention to detail, staying calm under pressure. But now I was making the calls, not just following them. My team started to gel, their trust in me growing. We hit milestones, and the client's excitement was palpable. Ms. Reynolds praised my ability to anticipate problems before they arose. I was no longer just executing, I was shaping the outcome. That old mantra, "Assistants don't lead," felt like a distant memory. I was leading, and I was good at it. The launch was a success, and I felt a pride I'd never known before. Looking back, that first client meeting was the spark that changed everything. I'd spent years perfecting the art of being invisible, but one moment of courage rewrote my story. I learned that leadership isn't about titles, it's about stepping up when it matters. My old role taught me discipline, foresight, and resilience, skills that made me a great leader. Innovatech became my home, a place where I could grow and thrive. I still pinch myself sometimes, amazed at how far I've come. Assistants don't lead? Maybe not usually. But when the client chose me, I chose myself too. And that's made all the difference. Settling into my new role at Innovatech wasn't without challenges. The transition from assistant to project lead felt like jumping into the deep end. My team was talented but opinionated, and I had to earn their respect daily. I leaned heavily on my ability to listen, a skill honed from years of anticipating others' needs. I held one-on-one meetings to understand their strengths and concerns. Slowly, I built trust by showing I valued their input while keeping us on track. The pressure was intense, deadlines loomed, and the stakes were high. But I thrived on the challenge, finding joy in solving problems. My old assistant mindset helped me stay organized, but now I was the one making the big calls. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. One of my first tests was a crisis with a key vendor. They'd missed a critical deadline, threatening our entire timeline. My team looked to me, waiting for direction. I felt the weight of their eyes, the old doubt creeping in, assistants don't lead. But I pushed it aside and called an emergency meeting. I laid out the facts, brainstormed solutions, and delegated tasks with precision. We pivoted to a backup vendor, and I negotiated a deal to keep us on track. The team rallied, impressed by my calm under fire. Ms. Reynolds later told me I'd handled it like a seasoned leader. That moment solidified my confidence. I could do this. Building a team culture was my next hurdle. Innovatech was fast-paced, and burnout was a real risk. I remembered how undervalued I'd felt as an assistant and vowed to do better. I started small, team lunches, open-door policies, and genuine praise for good work. I made sure everyone felt heard, from interns to senior developers. It wasn't just about hitting deadlines, it was about creating a team that wanted to succeed together. My assistant days taught me the power of small gestures, and they paid off. Morale improved, and our productivity soared. I was shaping not just projects but people's experiences. It felt like leadership in its truest form. Presentations became my new battleground. As an assistant, I'd prepped them, not delivered them. Now, I was the one at the front of the room, facing clients and executives. My first one was nerve-wracking. My palms sweated, my voice shook. But I knew the material inside out, thanks to years of preparing others. I focused on the data, not the spotlight, and it worked. Clients started requesting me specifically, trusting my clarity and confidence. I learned to own the room, to make complex ideas simple and compelling. That old mantra, "Assistants don't lead," was fading fast. I wasn't just presenting, I was persuading, inspiring, leading. Mentorship became an unexpected part of my role. Younger team members started coming to me for advice. I saw myself in them, the quiet competence, the fear of stepping out. I shared my story, encouraging them to speak up, to take risks. One intern, Sarah, reminded me of my younger self, eager but unsure. I coached her through her first client presentation, watching her shine. Helping others grow felt as rewarding as leading projects. I realized leadership wasn't just about results, it was about lifting others up. My assistant days had taught me to see the details. Now I saw the people behind them. Not every day was a win. Some projects hit roadblocks, budgets, egos, or plain bad luck. One client rejected our proposal after weeks of work, and my team was crushed. I felt the failure personally, questioning if I was out of my depth. Assistants don't lead, that voice whispered. But I regrouped, held a postmortem with the team, and we dissected what went wrong. We turned the loss into a lesson, refining our approach for the next pitch. Failure stung, but it taught resilience. I learned that leading meant owning the lows as much as the highs. And we came back stronger. Ms. Reynolds became my mentor, guiding me through the corporate maze. She saw potential in me I hadn't seen in myself. Over coffee, she shared her own journey, admitting she'd once been overlooked too. Her advice was blunt: own your space, or someone else will. I took it to heart, pushing myself to speak up in meetings, to challenge ideas respectfully. She taught me that leadership wasn't about being loud, it was about being right. My assistant instincts, anticipating needs, staying prepared, made me a natural. I was no longer just following, I was carving my own path. Networking was a skill I had to learn fast. As an assistant, I'd stayed in the background, but leaders can't afford to be invisible. I attended industry events, shaking hands and swapping business cards. At first, I felt like an imposter, waiting for someone to call me out. But I leaned on my strengths, listening, asking smart questions, following up. Soon, I was building relationships that opened doors for my team. Clients started seeing me as a partner, not just a point person. Assistants don't lead? Maybe not, but I was connecting, influencing, and driving results. My first big promotion came a year into the role. I was named Senior Project Lead, overseeing multiple teams. The title felt surreal, but the work felt right. I was no longer just executing plans, I was shaping strategy. I worked with executives to align projects with company goals. My assistant days had taught me to anticipate problems. Now I was anticipating markets, trends, futures. The responsibility was heavy, but I carried it with pride. My team trusted me, and I trusted myself. That old doubt, assistants don't lead, was gone. I wasn't just leading, I was excelling. Reflecting on my journey, I saw how every step had prepared me. Being an assistant wasn't a limitation, it was my foundation. The skills I'd honed, organization, empathy, precision, were the bedrock of my leadership. I'd gone from the sidelines to the center, from invisible to indispensable. The client choosing me was the spark, but I chose to rise to the challenge. I was no longer defined by my old role. I was a leader, not because of a title, but because I'd earned it. Assistants don't lead? I'd rewritten that rule, and I wasn't done yet. Leading multiple teams brought new challenges. I was now responsible for dozens of people, each with their own strengths and quirks. Coordinating their efforts while keeping clients happy was like juggling fire. I leaned on my assistant roots, creating systems to track progress and catch issues early. I held regular check-ins, ensuring everyone was aligned. My teams were diverse: engineers, designers, analysts, and I had to speak their languages. It was exhausting but rewarding. When we hit deadlines, the victory was collective. Assistants don't lead? I was proving otherwise, building teams that trusted my vision. One project stands out: a high-stakes product launch for a global client. The timeline was brutal, and the client was demanding. I rallied my teams, breaking the project into manageable chunks. We worked late nights, fueled by coffee and determination. I kept everyone motivated, reminding them of the bigger picture. When problems arose, a buggy prototype, a delayed shipment, I pivoted fast, finding workarounds. The launch went off without a hitch, and the client was ecstatic. My teams celebrated, and I felt like I'd finally arrived. I wasn't just an assistant anymore. I was a leader who delivered. Public speaking became a regular part of my role. I'd gone from prepping slides to delivering keynotes at industry conferences. The first time I faced a crowd of hundreds, my knees shook. But I channeled my assistant days, focusing on the message, not the nerves. I spoke clearly, weaving data with stories to keep the audience engaged. Afterward, people approached me, asking for advice or collaboration. I realized I wasn't just sharing ideas, I was inspiring action. Assistants don't lead? I was leading rooms full of professionals, and they were listening. I started mentoring more formally, taking on protégés like Sarah. Watching them grow was like watching my own journey unfold. I taught them to anticipate, to communicate, to take risks. Sarah landed her first big client because of the confidence I helped her build. Seeing her thrive reminded me of how far I'd come. Leadership wasn't just about projects, it was about legacy. My assistant days taught me to lift others up, and now I was doing it intentionally. I was shaping the next generation, proving assistants could lead in their own way. Challenges never stopped coming. A rival company poached one of my best engineers, disrupting a key project. I felt betrayed, but I didn't let it derail us. I recruited a replacement, restructured the team, and kept us on track. The experience taught me resilience. Leaders don't dwell on setbacks, they adapt. My assistant instincts kicked in, helping me stay calm and focused. We delivered the project on time, and the client never knew we'd scrambled. Assistants don't lead? I was leading through chaos, and my team followed. My relationship with Ms. Reynolds evolved into a partnership. She became not just a mentor but a confidant. We'd brainstorm over lunch, debating strategy and innovation. She pushed me to think bigger, to see myself as a future executive. Her belief in me was unwavering, and it fueled my ambition. I started taking on cross-departmental projects, collaborating with marketing and R&D. My assistant days had taught me to connect dots. Now I was connecting teams. Leadership felt less like a role and more like a calling. I was exactly where I was meant to be. Recognition started coming naturally. Industry blogs mentioned my name, and I was invited to panel discussions. At first, I felt like an imposter, but my track record spoke for itself. Clients praised my ability to simplify complexity, and my teams respected my fairness. I was no longer the invisible assistant. I was a visible leader. The mantra, "assistants don't lead," felt like a relic of someone else's story. I'd built my own narrative, one where hard work and courage trumped titles. Every nod from a client or thank you from a team member felt like proof. Balancing work and life was my next frontier. Leadership demanded long hours, and I risked burning out. I remembered how I'd felt as an assistant, overworked, underappreciated, and vowed to protect my well-being. I set boundaries, delegated more, and carved out time for family. It wasn't easy, but it kept me grounded. My assistant days taught me to prioritize. Now I prioritized myself too. Leadership didn't mean sacrificing everything. It meant leading my own life as well. I was learning to balance ambition with happiness, and it felt right. Looking ahead, I saw endless possibilities. Innovatech was growing, and so was I. I was pitching new initiatives, shaping the company's future. My teams were thriving, and clients were signing bigger deals. I'd gone from assistant to senior leader in a few short years, but it felt like a lifetime. That first client meeting, the one where I spoke up, changed my trajectory. Assistants don't lead? I'd shattered that myth. I was leading teams, projects, and change, and I was just getting started. My story wasn't about luck. It was about choosing to step up. If I could go back, I'd tell my younger self to speak up sooner. Every assistant has the potential to lead. You just have to seize the moment. My journey started with one client choosing me, but I chose myself every day after. Leadership isn't about titles or spotlight. It's about impact. I went from organizing schedules to shaping futures, from invisible to indispensable. Assistants don't lead? I beg to differ. I'm proof that anyone can lead if they're willing to try. So take the leap, trust your skills, and rewrite your own story. I did, and I've never looked back. That's my story, friends. If you love this journey, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Your support keeps us going. Hit that button and join the community.